I'm Alan. I own a 45-foot narrowboat, have an interest in industrial heritage, transport and technology, and invite you to join me as I cruise, repair and maintain my boat, and visit events and places of historic interest. Pyronaut is located at Princes Wharf in the Floating Harbour at Bristol, England. She is a specialised form of fireboat known as a fire float. Outside the UK, fire floats are commonly known as fire boats. It was built in 1934 by Charles Hill & Sons Limited, Albion Dock, Bristol, yard number 208. She was a crucial part of the Bristol Docks firefighting service for about 40 years. Originally named Phoenix 2, it had a crew of 3 firemen, including an engineer based in the engine room. It is seen here at the Bristol Harbour Festival, a free-to-attend annual dance, music and arts extravaganza held in July, with a programme of family activities, circus performances, visiting vessels, on-water activity and live music. It attracts 250,000 visitors over the 2 or 3 day event. The harbour is known as the Floating Harbour and covers an area of 70 acres, 28 hectares. It was made from the tidal River Avon that flows through Bristol. A tidal bypass to the south of the river, known as the New Cut, was dug for 2 miles, work commencing in 1804 and taking 5 years to complete. This encapsulated the original watercourse, so that its level remains constant and is not affected by the tide on the river in the Avon Gorge. This separation of the floating harbour from the river allows boats in the harbour to remain floating at low tide, reduces currents and silting, and prevents flooding. This is where the phrase ship-shape and Bristol fashion comes from, as boats were no longer leaning or falling over when the tide was out. When ships loaded with valuable cargoes are berthed together in crowded docks surrounded by warehouses, a fire can be disastrous. Whilst land-based fire engines can reach much of the fireground, waterborne fire engines like Pyronaut can fight the fire from the water, of which there is an unlimited supply. The first recorded fire float was built in 1765 for the Sunfire Insurance Company in London. This was a small rowing boat with a manual pump. A similar craft was built in Bristol by James Hillhouse for the Imperial Fire Insurance Office in the 1780s. At that time, all firefighting in Bristol was carried out by private insurance companies or the Docks Company, until the formation of the Bristol Fire Brigade as a branch of the police in 1876. In the mid-19th century, self-propelled steam fire floats were introduced. 2 of note were the Fire Queen of 1884, used by Bristol City Docks until 1922, and Salamander of 1905, used by the fire brigade. The drawback of steam was that they were slow to respond, needing to raise steam first, so were not quick at getting to the scene of fires. The Port Authority also had 2 fire floats. About 1930, 2 new fire floats were ordered, both built by Charles Hill. The first was Phoenix 2 and came into service in 1934, and the second was Andra again in 1936. Phoenix 2 was renamed Pyronaut in 1938, as there was another vessel of that name on the Bristol Ship Register. Early in 1939, several small fires preceded a major fire at the Anglo-American Asphalt Company. In 1940, Pyronaut was faced with her most challenging firefighting period as the air raids of the Bristol Blitz damaged and destroyed countless warehouses, factories, shops and homes around the Floating Harbour. It operated alongside 2 motor launches, also fitted with firefighting equipment. Pyronaut was constantly manned and working through the worst raids of the war. There was less work for Pyronaut after the war, but it did attend serious fires at the Hippodrome Theatre in 1948 and St Anne's Board Mill in 1949, among others. By the late 1960s, Pyronaut's equipment had become worn out and obsolete, and in 1973, after a decision to close the docks to commercial traffic by 1975, she was put up for sale. By then, most buildings could be reached by land-based fire appliances. Pyronaut was sold to the Port of Bristol Authority for conversion into a diver's boat, but this was not completed and was sold to a private owner in 1983. His plans for the vessel didn't work out, and in 1989 it was sold again, this time to Bristol City Museum. It was restored by 1995 and is now kept on Princes Wharf outside the Shed Museum, together with tugs Mayflower and John King. In June 2012, she travelled to London by road to take part in the Queen's Diamond Jubilee pageant. Listed on the National Historic Ships Register, she can be seen in full water spraying action during major harbour events.